Dan, this I remember there was a book by Jonathan Kane. I forget the name of it, but he wrote about some of these ancient deities, and he says this: when a nation turns away from God and drives his spirit out of its culture, the nation will not stay empty. Other spirits will come in and possess it and transform it. One of these demonic spirits is called the Enchantress. In her ancient Mesopotamian inscriptions, it states that she turns men into women and women into men. Her priesthood were called the Asinu. They were men that walked around her temple dressed as women. Parents brought their children to see them perform and dance. This goddess who altered sexuality and gender was linked to the sign of the rainbow. There's a dark secret to the rainbow which would cause anyone to have second thoughts about waving it. Now, the rainbow originally belongs to God, not to man, not to government, not to any movement. For the White House, he wrote this under Biden. For the White House to use the rainbow outside of its intended purposes is dangerous. The goddess Enchantress in her writings is also known to steal that which belongs to other gods, lowercase g. So there's a plethora of information on these transgender demons that are very ancient, and it looks like they've come back, Dan.
Yeah, no, I'm going to read. This is part of the manuscript for the follow-up to the manual. So this is the Liber Christo primer. I address this.
Oh, okay.
Shauska, you mentioned her on this proscription that a man shall not dress like a man should not put on a woman's dress, or anyone does such things an abomination to the Lord. And here's what I wrote. Perhaps the answer lies in the opening paragraph of the book of Exodus, where Moses recounts how the Israelites were put into forced labor by the Egyptians, specifically to build for Pharaoh the supply cities of Pithom and Ramses. The city Pithom was dedicated to the Egyptian deity Atum, A-T-U-M, who was depicted as their creator god who emerged from the primordial waters. In the Nag Hammadi scrolls, the collection of early Gnostic Christian texts discovered in 1945, Atum is described as androgynous, the bisexual deity called the Great He-She. This deity, remember Psalm 95:5, the gods of the Gentiles are demons, was also called the Great Masturbator because in this cult he masturbates and ingests his own semen and then spits them out, spits children out. A mockery and diabolic inversion. This is in the Nag Hammadi scrolls, okay? This isn't, crazy research. A mockery of the diabolic inversion of the true creator God, Elohim, in Genesis 1:1, who created man in his image and likeness, stamping him as imago Dei, in the image of God, and making him capax Dei, capable of the divine, of concealing, containing design, inheritor of the divine. The Pharaoh, to include his heir apparent firstborn son, were thought to be the descendants of Atum. Moses elsewhere noted the liberation of Israel, commemorated by the Passover, began when they set out from Ramses, another major city of Egypt, in Numbers 33:5. One of the principal deities of this city was the goddess Shaushka, also known as Ishtar and Astarte throughout the Old Testament, who was thought to have the power to change people's genders, as you aptly pointed out earlier. This goddess of fertility and sex was worshipped through fertility rituals and orgies in groves and sacred poles and trees. She was closely associated and sometimes considered the wife of Baal, the god of storms, fertility, and agriculture. Baal was also thought to be bisexual and androgynous, and his cultic worship involved cross-dressing and orgies. And by the way, just incidentally, when we come across this particular demon in cases of possession, male authority is, this demon cringes to male authority, this particular one. Many of these deities found crossover from the various surrounding nations, to include the land of Canaan, where the Israelites were heading as they departed Egypt. Not unlike that of the Egyptians, the Canaanite religion was principally a fertility cult. Their occult practices were primarily animal and human sacrifice, and rituals involved sexual perversion. Worshippers of Baal offered animal sacrifice to appease him in times of crisis, even through sacrificing their children, often the firstborn. Baal was the warrior god, storm god, sea deity, and principal deity of the fertility cults. Baal is the title of Lord or Master. His mistress and fertility goddess Ashtoreth, like Lilith, also the owl. The owl is her symbol, was worshipped in ritualistic sex beneath trees called groves and poles. And I list off several places in the Old Testament where this was at. And so this is when it says that that Moses writes that the Lord exacted judgment on the gods of Egypt, Numbers 33:4. We see that God is striking the idolatrous Egypt and freeing Israel from these cults, these dehumanizing rituals, and he's constantly warning them not to fall into these rituals. But we see again we fight an ancient enemy, and these ancient weapons are best, and we're seeing a resurgence. Nature abhors a vacuum. Supernature or preternature abhors a vacuum. So as the church is weakened, as culture is weakened, as we cast God out of our culture, these other gods fill that void, and some of these things are far more ancient than people seem to understand. And you hear that word grove or trees, sacred trees, and then you hear about the Bohemian Grove, and you see, these are some of the rituals that they're tapping into.
Yep, this is the time we live in right now. That's why, as Catholics, we have to be prayed up, churched up. We got to be armored up. Let me share.
We need to be trans. We need to be transubstantiated,
transformed of the heart, and transfigured.
And transfigured.
Those are the three trans that we as Catholics. That's
I'm a trans Catholic.
Yeah. Here, so as Catholics, we reject transvestites, transgenders, and transhumanism. Utterly reject that. Okay, it's diabolical. But as Catholics, we need transformation of the heart. Romans 12:2. Transubstantiated Eucharist to save our soul. John 6:53-56. And we got to focus our lives daily on Jesus Christ transfigured. Matthew 17:8. Because that's what's going to get us to heaven. Those three trends.
If you like the message of Virgin Most Powerful Radio, type in under comments, Jesus is King.